of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I remind everyone that this meeting is being telecast and recorded on Channel 14. I also remind any member of the public who wishes to make an audio or video recording of the open session of this meeting to first notify me as the chair, and I will then inform the public of the recording as required by the open meeting law. So we'll start off with public comment. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes per individual. There will be no debate or action taken on public comment items. The committee will take items under advisement, or the individual may request it on a future agenda. The chair may allow public comment on tonight's agenda items when they occur during the meeting, so comments are for things not on the agenda. Any public comment? It takes me longer to say that than we spend on the comment. Okay, moving along. So the first thing is to vote to accept the following donations from the Falmouth Jewish Congregation Brotherhood, the Rotary Club, and Cape Cod Church.
So I would recommend that the committee accept the following donations. The $405 from the Falmouth Jewish Congregation, that was raised at a pizza dinner that they did and a performance by the a cappella group, and they request that the monies be spent at the discretion of that group. I don't know if you want to approve them as a bunch or you're going to approve them individually.
I think we have to do it individually. Yeah, I think we'll take them individually.
Are there any other ones that have like a caveat to them?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So probably individually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think so.
and I think just because if people need to abstain, we want to abstain from all of them. So can I get a motion on the acceptance of the $405 donation from the Falmouth Jewish Congregation Brotherhood?
I'll make a motion to accept the donation of $405 from the Falmouth Jewish Congregation Brotherhood.
And a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, Rotary Club.
So the Rotary Club, this is for money to support the implementation of the Falmouth Interact Club, which is happening at the Falmouth High School. And you can see that the purpose of that club is to develop school, community, and international service projects. That will be under the guidance of Alan Kazarian at Falmouth High School, and their first club meeting is on Wednesday, September 13th at 2:15 at the guidance office.
That sounds really cool. Can I get a motion to accept the donation from Rotary?
I'll make the motion to accept the $2,500 from Rotary Club.
A second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor of accepting the donation from Rotary?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Wonderful, unanimous. Last, Cape Cod Church, $5,000.
It's a lot of money. It aligns with the goals of the district, and it supports professional development focusing on mental health issues. I would recommend that you accept it.
That's very generous. Is there a motion to accept the Cape Cod Church donation?
I'll make a motion to accept the $5,000 from the Cape Cod Church.
A second?
A second?
Any discussion? All in favor of accepting the Cape Cod Church donation? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? And so it passes unanimously. So our thanks, of course, to all of those donations. And they'll get a letter or something?
Yes, we will send out the letter.
Wonderful, thank you. So next on the agenda is to review and appoint an alternate bill signer. So we ran into trouble, I don't know, a couple weeks ago when the two people that we had appointed to sign bills were not available. So we were thinking it would be helpful to have a third person, and I'm willing to be that third person to sign the bills if the other two are not available. It would really just be as a total backup, because I don't imagine it's going to happen.
Why don't we,
very
I'll
often.
do it. We can have two alternates, okay?
Okay.
Because
Just like we did, so it would be, so Walter and Bill are currently the signers, and then just have two more?
you and I?
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I'm gonna be out of commission for at least 3 months. It's okay.
Yeah, so maybe
Yeah.
two extra would be
So.
wise.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Melissa?
I feel like we should all be able to sign equally. No?
To appoint anyone to do it?
Yeah.
I think we might have to do this then 8 times.
What do you mean?
That we would have to appoint, because this is for each person, right? For,
I don't
To
know, how does it
implement
read again?
it's a motion to implement the Municipal Modernization Act of 2016 in accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Law C-41 S-56 as amended. The school committee designates blank and alternate blank as its members to approve bills to be transmitted to the town accountant for payment. And she shall provide the committee with a report of the bills, of all bills so approved as the first meeting of the committee.
I'm okay with that, if that's what we need to do. I just kind of feel like we should all have, if whoever is here, whoever is able to,
The way it was before?
yeah.
Sharon, maybe we should ask Sharon, was having the two people definites more smooth? Yeah, see, I think...
I'm not saying all of us sign it, I'm just saying have the ability for all of us to come in and sign, like who's ever here first? I don't know, maybe just trying
I have
to...
a point of order.
Designating someone, but Patrick, can you speak to that from your conversations with the town side?
Sure, the town would prefer to have a consistency, that there is sort of a consistent person providing some oversight of this, and so, you know, what you're suggesting, I think, is a good idea, rather than have, you know, nine different people providing oversight. I was going to provide a report at the end of the first quarter with all the warrants that have been signed for this fiscal year, so you will be getting a report. On the other hand, this is a new law, so it's not like there's lots of municipalities or school districts have figured it out yet, so no one's going to have an absolute, this is right and this is wrong on this. So the desire is to make this more efficient, a more efficient process. So that's I would suggest going with the primary folks and then an alternative or two if needed.
John and then Andrea?
Yeah, I just had a point of order, Madam Chairman, that this needed to be a motion, a seconded, and then discussion. We went right into the discussion.
We did. I think because it didn't say vote, so I wasn't thinking that it would actually
We
end
have
up
a
being
vote,
a
is somebody
vote.
motioning something or seconding? Or?
Is there a motion to appoint an alternate bill signer?
An alternate.
An alternate. Yeah.
I'll make a motion to appoint an alternate bill signer.
And is there a second for that?
Oh, I'll second it,
Okay.
since I've been talking about it.
Okay, John, did you have a?
Yeah, now the discussion point. I'm in agreement with Melissa as far as that, from the notion of when we first did that vote. Now, is that a mandatory thing, Patrick, that we have to do that, have a designated signer?
No.
No, what the Municipal Modernization Act was doing was offering this option to school committees or to large committees that instead of chasing down 5 people every week or every 2 weeks, that you designate someone to come in on that. That it was the Municipal Modernization Act is just attempting to create some efficiencies.
Okay. Because I did actually vote for the signer, and I've got no issue with either of these gentlemen being the signer. You know, as far as and afterwards, having thought about it, looking it into practice, I think there's a real value add to have the old system in place where we need X number of signers. I think having a presence of the school committee come into the building and interact with the staff is a good thing. I think as things are pending, it keeps a discussion point. I think that's our main job, really, is in addition from number 1, school, the safety of the kids. Number 2 would be approving the budget and having things go through there, and having an extra set of eyes just regards to any kind of ethical concerns that might come down the road. If you have 5 or 6 people checking off on it, signing off on it, that's always better, I think. And then rather than, you know, the notion of afterwards kind of looking at it, it's sort of the, you know, the horse is kind of already out of the barn at that point. And I do think that, frankly, if folks have trouble coming into to periodically sign a budget and look at the items, maybe they shouldn't be on the school committee if they don't have the time, or they don't have the time that's within the hours that the school is you need to be present sometimes. That's my thoughts on it.
Andrea, do you have something?
Yeah, so I was trying to think about what is the downside. So, like Patrick was saying, this is new and people are working out the kinks, and so we don't have all the answers. But if those rare situations where you have both people who are designated unavailable, what happens? Anybody have?
I think
What would happen if we weren't able to have them signed that particular week?
Oh, the bills just don't get paid. Is that what you mean? Or, so I think there's two things that could happen. One is that we could require a quorum to sign them, like we used to do in the past. It's just that you don't usually know until, Monday or Tuesday, that you would need a quorum. There's not as much lead time. And then the second thing that could happen is that they wouldn't make it to town hall and wouldn't get paid, right?
Does that happen?
Does
Yeah,
that
so-
happen frequently?
So I guess I'm, so,
don't want that to happen.
in this situation, we know Walter has already just said there's going to be a couple months here, okay? So now we know we're down to one. We know that there's this possibility where we need to get a quorum in to do it, so people are alerted to it. I'm just wondering, do we actually need to do anything different than we're doing when those occasional situations come up, if we have another plan in place, that people will be alerted and we'll have the quorum?
And just revert to a quorum?
Because presumably people said, yes, I can be the signers, knowing that they're generally available, so.
Right.
I'm going to throw my 10 years of experience around with poor Mary Ann having to come to people, Anne Marie having to come to people's houses to meet a deadline because of that quorum. So, we've been talking for years to make it a smooth process. Having to worry about the quorum, over 10 years, it was 90% of the time. Right, Sharon? Anne Marie had to call, and she'd have to call your cell phone. And I'm not kidding you, she appeared at my house and appeared at people's houses to get them signed. So I go for the smooth lining with two alternates.
And I agree with that. I think, every other week when we're actually here and can sign it, it runs smoothly. But those in-between weeks, because I know my work schedule, I can never get here during work hours. So I'm not available to sign. So I really appreciate being able to delegate this to Walter and then to Bill. And in the rare occasion, I guess, I'm for us doing an alternate also, alternate, just to cover that, because things happen, and especially like during the summer, when people are away, I feel like that is a time that we might have the two people out at the same time. So I'm happy to do either, but I do support us doing an alternate. So.
Okay, anything new or interesting that we need to consider, or should we
Just
do?
a clarification, has it been it's not been my understanding the last 2 years I've been on the school committee that anybody needed to go to anybody's house. Has it been within the last 2 years that had happened?
No, but it's come down to the wire, and it's been frustrating in the last, before we went over to Walter and Bill doing it, there was frustration.
And it does, I don't know, I guess Anne Marie made the phone calls in the past, but now it's
She
on
did.
Sharon to make phone calls and to catch people. So it is a little bit of a clunky process.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table but I think we need to clarify our motion, because Terry had suggested that she'd be willing to do that, and when you read this, we didn't have a name in there. So it would be for Terry to do this as an alternate, right? An alternate, William Ryder and Terry Medeiros.
Okay, so
Correct.
2 alternates to amend what our original one was.
Because we just didn't have a name in there when you read it.
Okay.
So it would be Terry, it would be you, correct?
that's
Is that
fine.
right?
I have another question on that.
Yeah.
So just as far as the mechanics of that, so let's say we see something that's completely inappropriate, and I have yet to see that. Everything is great, but if somebody sees something after the fact, what's the mechanism then for somebody to say, you know, who's not a signer, to say, gee, what about this bill, et cetera? I mean, we should have a mechanism in place, you know, as far as if somebody has a red flag about something.
Has a red flag about a bill that was,
About a
well, I mean, we would, whatever the process was in the past, because we only needed 5 people to sign the bills before.
Well, the
So if
process
that
was that
sixth
they wouldn't
person,
sign it if they thought something was amiss. Now they don't have that ability.
they can certainly go in and look at the bills. That's why Anne Marie sends out the invitation.
But what's the next mechanical step then at that point? Because prior to that, if I did see something, I would say, Patrick, I'm not going to sign this, what's the deal with this? Now somebody else already signed it, the person theoretically already got their money, now what do I do?
Yeah.
So what I noticed is that Anne Marie is sending out an email saying the bills are ready. And so that's before anyone has signed. So I would say that if there's something that you're concerned about, that might be in that warrant, to come and look at it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I could actually do it. I'm typically there the very next day or the same day when she says that.
Okay.
Because I am able to do that, and I do think it's part of my responsibility. So that's a good solution. Thank you.
Yeah, so just coming,
And
but making sure you're coming right after the email. And maybe actually making sure that you talk to, that you
Whoever
send an
signed it.
email to Walter, to Bill, saying, you know, you want to be able to look at it before it's
They
signed.
sign it. And it can be signed by more than one. We just only need one. So if you wanted to sign
Maybe John
it,
would be a good alternate since he says he's here periodically.
I'd be willing to be an alternate also. And I like Melissa's idea of having everybody
Just the
be
ability,
an
like,
alternate
I'm
that
not,
whoever's
yeah, I'm
available
not
can just come
suggesting
in.
that everyone have to sign it like before. I certainly don't want Sharon or anyone going to anyone's houses. I think that everybody puts in more than enough time. But I was just suggesting that anyone have the ability as opposed to...
I actually love that idea. I would just like to know whether or not we can actually do that. So let's take the problem at hand, which is that we need one more person that can sign the bills, especially as we know that, you know, Walter has given us a heads up that it's going to be challenging for him. So there was the motion to have Terry be the alternate, and I think we should take that, and then we can, if we can find out more information about whether we can all just be a signer, that would be great, because then everybody has the ability, oh, don't call Bill, I'm already here, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was suggesting.
Okay, so let's take the motion.
Can I say, do you want to be the alternate, John?
Sure.
Okay, well, then scratch me and put John, because he has a system already. I was just doing it because now that I don't work, I have more time, but
Happy to do so.
there.
Okay, so I think let's start fresh. So now we're all it's been so long since the motion. Would you do me a favor, please?
I will read it.
Will you read the motion with
Yes.
John in there? So let's
Okay.
get it right, and then we'll take a second, and we'll handle less discussion and actually vote, move on.
Okay. Implement the Municipal Modern Act of 2016 in accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Law C-41 S-56 as amended. The school committee designates Walter Crowdy and alternate William Ryder and John Bernard, right?
Perfect.
Okay, as its members to approve bills to be transmitted to the town accountant for payment, and she shall provide the committee with a report of all bills so approved at the first meeting of the committee following such action.
Okay, can we get a second on that?
Second.
Thanks, Walter. Thank you for humoring me. I just feel like we kind of muddied it all
I'd
up.
like an
Is there-
amendment though, if you could just since we are 3 guys, you could just say he. It's okay.
Any last discussion on it? No. Okay. All in favor of the motion as Leah really eloquently read? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, passes unanimously. All right, great. So at least it takes care of the immediate future. Thank you. So I had it was really an honor and a joy to be at Convocation. I've never been able to go because it's always the week of my vacation, but I went this year. And it was lovely, first of all. And one of the pieces that was part of Convocation was recognizing employees that had 25 years of experience of service in the district. And I really felt like we should do that here, not just at Convocation, although they did get a wonderful round of applause. So I just want to recognize Wendy Scholes, Patricia Parker, Marjorie Sharp, Deborah Watson, Elizabeth Rainey, and Lynn Richardson, who have all got 25 years, which
I just think is absolutely incredible. And we're so appreciative. It's so great to have people stay that long. Next on the agenda is to review preliminary enrollment data. Is this one?
Yes, so you have a couple of charts in your packets. You have the enrollment comparisons, and the only thing I would call your attention to is the dates when the enrollment, each enrollment number, when they were reported, because they're a little bit different. So that's one thing, and if you look across, you can see where we were in 14, 15, 16, 17, and now we're in FY 18. So you can look at those numbers and compare them. Additionally, in your packet, you have the enrollment breakdown by classroom. So if you look across, you'll see the identified school. And for example, if you take a look at North, you'll see that in kindergarten, just so you know how to read this because it can be confusing, there are 2 sections at 16 and 2 sections at 17. And you can go right across and see what first grade, second grade, third grade, and fourth grade look like. You can do that for each school. A little bit different, as you know, at Morse Pond and Lawrence.
Any questions or comments for Nancy on the breakdown?
Oh, sorry, can I just do my one other chart before we get into the questions? If you look at the next chart, you see the school choice summary as of 9/12/2017. Sharon, did that get in the packet?
No, I don't think we have that.
It's in the
Oh, it's in the brief. Okay.
So if you take a look at that, I'll just make a couple of comments about that.
There it is, got it.
12 new kindergarten students, obviously they're all new this year to us. And it's broken down by each grade level, the total students in that grade level, and then how many are new school choice students in the district. So we're at 27 new students this year, and 12 of them are in the kindergarten cohort.
Okay, any comments or questions for Nancy on the enrollment data? Leah?
Well, I gotta say, I really appreciate seeing these comparisons and having them in different colors makes it a little bit easier. But one thing that I noticed, and I think it's worth mentioning, is that in looking at our trends of students who leave during the high school time, it looks like we've really maintained. So in looking at our numbers of students who leave us during high school, which made me proud of our high school, which was good. But I did have a question about us having 50 students less this year. As to, do we know, like we were talking about doing exit questionnaires with families who are leaving. Do we have any sense of?
I'm not sure that we have done exit interviews, particularly on the high school. However, I would caution you that this year, that number was collected on 9/7, and I'm not sure how accurate that number is.
Okay.
Because we have had, and that doesn't speak to your issue of kids leaving, but what it does say is that the enrollment, when I speak to Alan Kazarian or Mary Gans, they're still having students enroll. So that was another reason why I called out the date for when the data was collected. However, if we think about kids leaving during those 4 years, if Sonia or Charlie, if you could follow up with the high school on that, because I'm not sure that they're doing exit interviews. I think Alan Kazarian and the guidance counselors may do informal when students go up and say they're leaving or bring in their transfer paperwork, but I'm not sure how formal or if it's reported.
That would be really interesting to.
I agree.
Is there any official date the state uses to do numbers? Is it like October?
1st.
Thank you.
It's that October.
So, my question is related to Leah's, which is that, so I understand that if we don't have numbers on kids that are still coming in, but if a student were to leave, do they immediately pull out of our system? Like, let me be more specific. So I'm very curious about this Lawrence number, which is 600 compared to 567 last year, and we've talked a lot about losing kids to FA and losing kids to private school at that particular age. So what I'm wondering is, are there maybe kids in that number, in that 600, who have left, but we don't know that yet?
I don't think so.
It's
I
mostly
think-
kids that are coming in that
I
we might
think
not
that
have yet.
600 represents that bubble class that
Oh, the bubble.
now moved on.
By
The bubble.
That's the biggest representation
Okay,
right there.
thank you, that's very helpful. Andrew?
I was thinking something along that same line, because this is very helpful, but the thing I caught myself doing is looking on the diagonal to
Yeah.
follow cohorts.
Right.
And so looking at the information that way might show you a different trend and
Yes.
different patterns, so that you don't, get so worried about what might be,
Yeah, good.
what other
that is
things
the
might be
way.
happening.
You're absolutely right, that is the way.
That's helpful, thank you. Melissa, did you have something? No.
Well, yeah, I like the fact that there was due diligence put into the efforts on class size at the elementary levels. And that's really important when you're looking at numbers and dealing with young kids and the educational process. And I look at 2 of 16, 2 of 17, right on down the road. I think that you did a great job on that.
And that is an expensive model.
Yes, it is.
As you know.
Yes.
And we really want to continue to look at that and continue to look at, in keeping those class sizes really small, and I agree with you, especially in the younger grades, kind of looking at, okay, are we really moving kids? Is that helping us with student performance? And those are some things that we want to look at. And I agree, we have done a really good job this year, and it is an expensive model.
Yes.
The only other piece that I had is that we saw 4 new students in the 9th grade, which, for school choice, which I think, we've made those wonderful advertisements, and they must have paid for themselves. So that's wonderful too. Any other questions or comments on enrollment data? And that's also, actually, we had 2 items on that, right? We also had class size tied right together. So any last questions on the class size information? Okay. Great. So next we have the, actually, we don't even need to, I'm just going to ask if you have anything to say, but the reviewing of the budget development flow chart and the calendar.
So if you, in your packet, quickly, you will see the schedule that Patrick does every year, which is really helpful. It helps us keep that budget development on track, and we do present it every year for the school committee to take a look at and ask any questions regarding the development of the 19 budget.
So it's, as you can tell, it's within a day of the previous years. My suggestion is just to take a look at it, make comments through the chair and to the superintendent on any dates you would like to change. We don't have to act on it right now. Typically, we act on it by the end of September or something like that. So, and I know the superintendent had been thinking about doing something that she had done last year also, that sort of.
So did you want feedback on this now, or would you just like it to come to you outside the?
I would either have a discussion or just think about it and make comments back and it's your budget calendar, right? So.
Are there any thoughts on the budget calendar? John?
I don't have any compelling issue with it. It seems like it'd be fine. It worked this past year. Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Did you have something?
I had a quick process question. So I notice on some of them that it says second column, budget priority discussion at school committee meeting, but then it also has budget subcommittee. So does that just mean it goes through there first prior to the meeting, but then we are discussing it here?
Yes.
Right, right, so budget
For those
subcommittee,
not on
those
the
happen to be
subcommittee.
dates. And so that was actually one of my questions, whether or not the other budget, those happen to be dates that the budget subcommittee meets the same day as a school committee meeting, but we also often meet not on the same day, and whether or not those should be in here as well.
If we feel the need for those meetings, yeah. So that's why I wanted to, this was a draft. And if other meetings need to be added to the calendar, absolutely add them.
Yeah, I would like the budget subcommittee meetings to show on here because I think it's an important part of the process and I want it to be evident how much time and
Right.
thoughtfulness goes into it, and I don't want to leave those out because, you know, it's not just us either. You know, we also have FinCom at those meetings.
Yes.
So I think that would be an important piece.
Okay. No, I was just, no, we do have some of them,
Some of
maybe
them,
we
but
don't
not
have
all
all.
of them. Yeah. Terry?
And also, I don't remember the date, Sharon sent us a memo a couple days ago, there's a budget workshop, which is something that's happened the last couple of years that's really helpful.
Really helpful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
And
a
we're
Maybe a
workshop.
few more
working on
additions.
that.
Yeah.
We're working on that.
Andrea, I'm sorry if I cut you off. Did you get your question answered?
you did, thank you.
Leah?
So as far as that budget workshop, that's a town budget workshop that you're referring to, right, Terry?
No.
No,
Just for us.
no.
It's a school committee school
It's a school
budget.
committee
I've
budget.
done it for the past 2 years.
Yes, that's exactly what I wanted to talk about where that would be in our calendar.
And we're working on that.
Okay, because that is very helpful. I
It is.
really appreciate
Yeah,
that.
it
kind of-
really
yeah.
is.
Yeah, absolutely. Any
For
other?
somebody who's not on budget subcommittee, I super appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
That
it is. It's really nice to make sure that the budget
Irons
lines
a
with
lot
our
of things
priorities.
out, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Great, so if we have any other things, we'll just send them on. Patrick, is that
Well, yeah.
through Nancy to you?
Yourself
Okay,
and then
yep.
superintendent.
Great. Moving on. Vote to accept the superintendent's recommendation to appoint Dr. Parkinson as the district's physician. Would you like to speak to this?
I would, please. So, Dr. Parkinson, if you would come up front and center, please, and just have a seat. We have lots of initiatives going on in the district around student health, mental health, nutrition, basic physical health, and Dr. Parkinson has been a pediatrician in Falmouth for a very, very long time and has been a very active member and participant in several school committees, start times, and he's been an awesome resource to us. And so we were looking to make some changes, and I would recommend that you accept and appoint him as the district's physician, and welcome him aboard.
Dr. Parkinson, would you like to say anything?
Just,
Not to put you on the spot, but figured I should offer you the opportunity.
as Nancy's saying, I washed ashore 22 years ago, and that's difficult to believe, and almost as difficult to believe that my youngest child is now a senior in high school, and so I've had kids in the system for, I guess it'd be 17 or 18 years now in the Falmouth Public Schools, and I've always thought it was really important to have communication between the healthcare providers and the schools, and so much of what we do overlaps, and right now is such a difficult time for the health of children everywhere because of the multiple challenges that they're facing and that their families are facing, and the top of the list being emotional health challenges that are out there because of a variety of factors at play, and so I'm thrilled that to be invited and really look forward to working with everyone, and people have been very kind, hearing that this might come to pass. So I just say thank you to people for that.
Great, thank you. Do we have
I'll make a motion to accept Dr. Parkinson as our, appoint Dr. Parkinson as the district physician.
I will happily second that.
any other discussion? Great, all in favor of appointing Dr. Parkinson as district physician?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, passes unanimously. Welcome aboard! Yay! Congratulations! Yes, thank you. We do. It's huge. Yeah, it's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, sir.
All right, routine business. Minutes. Sorry, I got to take them back. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes from the July 11th school committee meeting?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes for the July 11th.
11.
It was so long ago.
2017 school committee. I feel like I'm making lots of motions today.
You are,
Meeting.
you're on a roll.
Yeah.
I'll
Is there a
second
second?
it. Yeah, I'll second
Any
it.
discussion on the minutes?
I just have a question, and it's not necessarily about the order of minutes, it's more about, and I probably should have asked it then, about this, what do we do with the surplus of books? And if now isn't the time to ask that, that's fine too. I should have asked it then, it didn't occur to me.
I think you did.
We did talk about that.
So,
We did. I think it was listed on the things that we were gonna follow up on.
okay, then do we have a follow-up answer to what we do with the surplus of books?
Yes, I thought we did.
Yes.
Go.
So typically, we've worked with Fountain Academy who receives the donations and is like a regional coordinator to donate them.
Yep.
The ones that are in condition worthy of donation. Because we've had higher volume, we're actually working to have one of the agencies come and pick them up. So right now, we're holding on to them, waiting for an agency representative to come and pick them up for donation. There were a few that were in pretty poor condition, I think in particular the French collection, that we had to let go of, but the rest are awaiting donation.
So thank you for jogging my memory. I do remember that now, and I was wondering why we couldn't, if they were probably too excessive to put in like the book drop donation bins that are at the schools, and then the school gets the direct credit for it. Is that probably not, like for example, if you had a surplus coming from an elementary school and the elementary school has the donation bin, could we not put the books in that donation bin and get the credit from the donation bin company? As opposed to moving them to FA and having
I'm not sure
FA
that
get
they
the
get
credit.
credit back on some of these particular titles, and we've tried wherever we can to like sell them back, you know, to warehousing companies, but in many cases, either the condition or the age preclude us from being able to generate any return.
So if if we were unable to get credit because the books were in such poor condition, could then possibly we look into putting them in the donation bins at the schools? Because I know that the schools, when those bins are full, get cash from those donation bin companies.
We can pursue that.
Just something to think about. I know that they do get a decent revenue, and if the books were unable to be obtained credit for their condition, maybe we could possibly get at least cash for the schools, fill up their bins, put a little money in the principal's accounts, kind of thing. Just random thoughts.
Would you follow up on that, the donations for cash? That's a little fuzzy for me.
I didn't know that was possible, but
Okay, we need to look into that.
So is there any other comments? I just don't want to lose track of what we're doing. Any other comments on the minutes or any changes or edits? Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes from July 11th?
Hi.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Wonderful, unanimous, thank you. Okay, and then we'll come back to looking into the donations of books. Report from the superintendent.
Okay, so firstly, I would like to acknowledge and thank Sonia Tellier for acting on my behalf while I was out in the month of August. Things went really smoothly. The opening of school was amazing, and I think she did a fabulous job. And I would also like to give the school committee credit for allowing us to maximize that opportunity to be successful by incorporating both Ed Finn and Joanne Holton. Went very, very well. Additionally, my entire staff did an amazing job opening the district, and I'm very appreciative. A little nervous that they can do so well without me, but okay. And I'd like to welcome aboard Dr. Joanie Santa, who is our HR director. We are thrilled that she was willing to join our team. She has stepped in and done an amazing job. And so, welcome, and I'm so glad that you chose Falmouth.
We all are. It was great that we got to meet her at our retreat.
Glad you're here.
So you have a central office team and an administrative council to be extremely, extremely proud of.
Can I jump in for 2 seconds?
Yes.
I just want to take a second because I actually was here every week meeting with Sonia, which was actually really lovely because we never met other than over the summer that often, and it was amazing. I really, it means a lot coming from you, but I was also here and I feel like it couldn't have been more smooth, and I'm so appreciative, not just of your work but everybody's. I just wanted to jump in because I was
that.
here.
I think it's important, and I think it's important to acknowledge my team. So also a thank you to the custodial and maintenance staffs for the work in their building. If any of you have taken a walk through any of our buildings, they are in amazing, amazing shape, and they really need to be lauded for their work. If you look in your packet, you will see a copy of the 2017 completed summer projects, and that's really important to call out because you can see what the custodial and maintenance staff had to complete over the summer. And also my kudos to Patrick because a lot of these things had been hanging out there for quite a while, like paving. And so I'm very, very pleased with the work that was done in the buildings.
Nancy, if I
Yeah.
could, I just want to echo that. Part of what I do on a daily basis is analyze how buildings look and things of that nature. And I've been in many of the buildings, and I actually made a point to say that of how spectacular it looks. So kudos to that team.
I appreciate that. You know how difficult that work is and the amount of time it takes to get things done and to get it done really well. So look through it. There are a lot of pieces that had to happen. Kitchen projects, those are huge. You run into some timeline issues. It all came together in the end. And then the other piece on that list that I just want you to be aware of is that Kevin Pimentel has been designated as the district's AHERA, I call him liaison, and he has been doing a really excellent job. We are sending him to a lot of training to make sure that we are in compliance, and we are waiting for the AHERA plans to come back. And when they do come back from AEC, they will go to each building, and they will be posted on the website.
So one thing that's not on here is the work that was done in this room.
Yeah, no one cares about that. No.
We do.
Yes, look at that. And
looks
this
so
was done
nice.
by our own crew. They did an amazing job. They did work downstairs with floors and ripped up rugs, and they really, really turned up the heat this summer, and I'm very, very appreciative. So just to comment on the Student Advisory Committee, Mike Feeney let me know that they are meeting and they'll be conducting elections and appointing a student liaison to the school committee. And we might want to mix it up a little bit and have different students come forward. I'm letting them work through that, but that is an idea that's out there.
That's a good idea.
I think we could probably convince Theodore to still come and talk to us every once in a while.
Sure.
I hope so. Her projects.
Sure. Patrick and I went to the September 11th memorial at the Falmouth Fire Station, and that was really, I saw Melissa there. That was a really amazing event. That was important, and all schools did participate in many assignments. Before I get into the upcoming events, I just want to make you aware of just 3 quick things that are not in my briefing. One is just a brief update with the partnership with the YMCA. That's moving forward. Any bumps or hiccups, I've only had one so far that's been reported to me, and we're working it out in terms of what service will be offered, if any, on Columbus Day, Veterans Day, those pieces. Other than that, we're moving forward and things seem to be going well. Sonia and I attended a Socratic seminar today with the Lawrence School English Department. And as you know from convocation, we're talking a lot about race, the impact of race and poverty on student learning. Again, we're looking at the whole child. And they did a Socratic seminar all around race, and they did a really, really good job. So kudos to the Lawrence School English staff, and certainly Sarah Cox for leading them in that conversation. It's not an easy one. The other piece I want to let you know about is NBC is coming to talk to East Falmouth School about the opioid crisis in Falmouth, and we're working through some technicalities on that, and they want to do some filming. They actually want to present the impact of opioids on student learning, and the reason they got involved and contacted us a couple of months ago was because they had read something in the paper that Charlie had said about Falmouth and the impact of opioids on student learning. And so that, we have sent releases up to legal. There are a lot of pieces I want to make sure that we're doing everything right before we move forward on that project. But it's exciting, and I think it will highlight some of the really good work that we're doing here in Falmouth for our youngest learners.
Can you keep us up to date on that?
Yes. They will be, the producer will be in Falmouth on Monday just to look at the building and look at what it looks like and how it runs, but not doing any filming or any interviews. And I've been very clear with Dr. Dale that it really does need to be on her timeline to make sure that all releases are signed, that everyone knows what we're doing. And we need to protect the privacy of kids, and that's my biggest piece.
And then it doesn't interfere with our job, which is
Right.
to actually teach.
To teach.
Yep.
And, okay, so that's all I have there. And then just some upcoming events I just wanted to make you aware of. September 14th is the first CPAC meeting. That's the Special Education Parents Advisory Council. And typically that topic for the first meeting is all around parents' rights. And that's with Christine Riley, who's an advocate, who's wonderful and does a really nice job with that. Meet Your Teacher Night at Lawrence Schools. Senior, I don't need to read them to you. I just wanted to make sure that if you hadn't looked at the calendar, that you know that they're out there. And then the Wounded Warrior Ride, which I'd love to go to. Unfortunately, I won't be in the district that day. We have several buildings participating in the Wounded Warrior Ride. They go out and they watch, the warriors go by, and they're very encouraging. It's a nice event. So that's all I have.
Great. Sorry, I was reading. Distracted. Reports from Assistant Superintendent and Director of Curriculum Instruction, Sonia.
So I would love to answer questions, but before I do, I just wanted to, as we've outlined in our priorities, also share, Zach and I spent 2 days with all of our new colleagues, walking through these priorities and welcoming them to Falmouth, and really great team coming on board, and they were really receptive to the direction the district's going. So we just thought it was important to share that we had 2 days to coordinate that with them. Outside of that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have for me.
Leah.
Can I actually ask both of you a question? It's not actually, it's kind of tied to what your write-up was, but with the changes to the frameworks, is it possible for us to get an update on what those changes look like? I know that there's going to be a lot of work around that, but it would be really helpful for the school committee and the public to see what those changes are and how that
I think that's really important, and how often we've had some changes that we've had to manage.
Yeah.
With the changing of the standards.
Right.
Sure, Andrea.
Yes, I had a question about, there was a part here where you're talking about articulating the difference between sheltered English instruction and English language development. Can you articulate that for me, please?
Sure. So the SEI model, the sheltered English instruction, that is delivered by the content teachers to the students enrolled in their classes. So the endorsements are in by our English teachers and our math teachers and so on, as long as they're categorized in the Commonwealth as a core academic teacher, which they refer to really strictly as math, English, social studies, and science. Even though we talk about core a little differently, that's their parameters. Whereas ELD, or English Language Development, is the specific curriculum offered by an instructor who works with the English learners outside of their content areas to foster their language development, both in support of the academic language, but just the general language. I think I've separated that out. And I think what's important out of there, I'm looking to Leah, we have these conversations, but I think what's important there is the recognition that there's Massachusetts honors a two-lane curriculum. So there's what's expected for English language instruction in the classroom, and then separate from the content in their separate course, which is the ELD course. It's not one or the other. They run parallel.
Can I add to that? So a nice way to look at the difference between SEI and ELD, or Sheltered English Instruction and then English Language Development, is that the sheltered instruction is content-based instruction, but then you modify the language to meet the needs of English language learners in your classroom. The ELD instruction is English language instruction that's then tied to content that students are exposed to. So it could be a theme of something that they're learning in social studies, but the core of that instruction is English language development. So it's coming from the lens of language for ELD, the lens of content for SEI.
And the who is important as well, because you can have people with more skills potentially who are just focusing on English language development.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
As opposed to an add-on that a core area teacher also has to do on top of what they're already doing.
Exactly, and I really appreciate that you put that's something that you're working on, because there is a distinction between the two. Yeah.
And I think in trying to help our colleagues earn their endorsements, the other side of that is an ELD teacher has a specific ELD or ESL, English as a Second Language certification, whereas the content area teacher has their primary certification, which might be, I always default, right, to my nature, English. And then they have an endorsement that is an additional course series or set of courses that they've gone through to develop those strategies instructionally.
Thank you.
John?
How do the folks, the teachers, walk the line of helping with English language versus I may be helping, this kid that's getting help with English, maybe more so than the kid who's just sitting there and speaks English. You know what I mean? When you're talking about the content and you're explaining the content, does any of it become, an unfair advantage for one kid versus another kid who's not getting that kind of instruction?
I think one easy way to respond to that is to sort of put in the context of differentiation, right? So we're looking at the student's language proficiency level and we're differentiating around that. So I think one of the things Leah was nodding to was the fact that when the content teacher is delivering the content, they also have a set of language objectives so that they're differentiating the instruction to provide it at a proficiency level that the student is ready to hear and read and receive. So I guess I would sort of look at it from that lens, as opposed to, there's more attention here than what there should be here.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions for Sonia? Thanks, Sonia. Zach?
So in my briefing, I outlined some of those bigger initiatives that we're going to be working on this year in our office, and obviously specifically with the K-6 lens on, so I'll be happy to answer any questions you have about those initiatives and activities. And also, we really hit the ground running this week with some professional development already in the second week of school. On Monday, we had a math series of professional development for teachers new to the district in their first few years to help get them familiar with our math program. And Tuesday through Friday this week, we have reading intervention training for some of our special educators. We've partnered with Charlie's office and some of our reading teachers. So we're excited about that.
Questions for Zach? I have one, not a question, but a comment. So the very first thing, the academically accelerated learners piece. So, I mean, it has probably been, 6 or 8 years or something like that, since I remember just meeting after meeting where people were complaining about not meeting this need in the district. And I knew that it was something that we were working on through the strategic plan, but there was something about reading this, about the number of educators who were currently working on it that just really struck me. Because we still don't talk about it very much. So that 16 educators received the training last year, and 16 more starting this year. And that's a lot of teachers that are focusing on this.
Yeah, our goal is that all elementary teachers will receive this training over 3 or 4 years. There's definitely a need. There's a group of kids who are underserved. We know that. Actually, Massachusetts is coming out and saying it as well. At the elementary level, we're really talking about good teaching. What is good teaching for all kids? When we think about gifted and talented, quote unquote, or academically accelerated, all kids shine at different times of the year. Johnny in September looks very different in January and March, and we like to see all students really accelerate throughout the year. So we feel like this is good training that all teachers should have, because who knows at what time of the year or in what subject area kids are going to shine. And the teachers who last year, the 16 who had taken the professional development series, were really positive about it. They're still going to receive additional coaching this year, because now they're kind of expected to do some of these activities. And then our new cohort of 16 will be starting later this month.
I love it. And I love how you say that about the shining thing. Leah?
So how does this align with the team program that happens at the middle school level?
Yeah, so we've talked about that. Tim McLaughlin and I last year actually went to some other districts in the state. We went to Framingham, we went to Barnstable to look at different models that they have for team programs. Essentially the difference that we have right now and is essentially that at the 1 to 4 level, we're really expecting all students to have opportunities to engage in some of these activities. Where at the Morse Pond level, we're seeing students a little more mature and advanced. It's not open to all students all the time. They're receiving differentiated instruction of their grade level content, but maybe at a quicker pace, so that way they cover more material. And Tim McLaughlin and I are really looking at that and seeing how we can connect it more to that 4th grade and beyond.
Great. Any other questions for Zach? Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlie, you have a lot. It's a lot of pages.
Well, and for your perusal, what I would point out is our excitement, particularly around our formal partnership with McLean Hospital that I talk about in the briefing. They provided professional development for our entire staff at the beginning of the year, and it is simply ongoing, along with the consultation work that they're doing. But really what it is too is they're working with groups of teachers in addition to our clinicians, but really looking to help our staff better understand the needs and profile of our students today, many who are with some mental health issues that they are struggling with, but also to provide our staff and our teachers with strategies that can be used in their classroom each and every day, which often not only will help a student specifically who might be struggling to perhaps pay attention or is struggling with anxiety, but they're interventions that end up helping all students as well. So that's a little piece of what they're doing, in addition to the professional development that they are and will be providing for our clinical staff along the way, and then really helping us too as we develop out further our programs, and particularly our Connect program, which is for our designated special education students who have a primary diagnosis of a social emotional disability. So even just today, we had a great meeting with our entire Connect staff, which goes from kindergarten through the high school, to really look at some vertical alignment and some setting of goals, and how best we can create transitions from one school's program to the next. So it really was an exciting conversation that we began to have. So we're really excited. They too are excited, because although they work with other districts, we're kind of forging a partnership a little more intensely than they have with other districts. So it's kind of a fun adventure that I think simply not only will help our staff have new tools in their toolbox to better support our students, but ultimately help all our students.
Can you just say what McLean Hospital is? 'Cause I'm betting that a lot of people don't.
Sure. It is primarily it's located in Belmont, Massachusetts. They do have a variety of clinics throughout parts of the state, and it is probably, if not the leading psychiatric facility and hospital in the country. And I mean, it's just publicly known that they are the best. And we have a team of a clinical child psychiatrist a clinical psychologist, and also a postdoctoral fellow psychologist, who really is our core 3-person team that we are working with. They are all part of, as well, McLean, one of their outpatient child and adolescent center or outpatient clinic for anxiety for children and adolescents. They bring a great background in terms of their work with young folks struggling with issues like depression and anxiety.
Thank you. Leah?
Is it possible for the school committee to get a little PD on this also?
A little
Professional development around this? I think it would be really helpful for us to really understand these pieces. As we know, it's such a big need for so many of our students and the families that our students are part of. We have so much of a great opportunity here with them being here. Is there a way for them maybe to do
I'm sure we could figure something out.
Yeah, maybe we could piggyback it on a meeting or something and get a little information about.
Or even during a meeting. I mean, it's interesting and relevant for the entire community. We just happen to be sitting here, but it's important for all of us to know.
I would say that too, because the feedback that we really received at the district's professional development day was just very, very overwhelming in terms of the amount of staff and teachers, and it involved our entire staff. All our teacher assistants were present as well, in terms of being able to better understand. And so many staff came back and said, not only did I learn, new tools for the toolbox and, some practical things that were shared that they can do in a classroom, but it just gave them a greater awareness of where their students are coming from, along with just some personal help that they were able to kind of match to their own, situation as parents. So yeah, there is some great value in it.
You can follow up on that. Let's just go down the row. Everyone wanted something.
So I obviously can't support this enough. I feel extremely passionate about this. I think that mental health is desperately unserved in this state, and if this is what we can do as our little part in our community to help support not only our students, but as you just pointed out, people will take things away from, having the clinicians around for their own personal use. That's great. It's beyond great. You don't know the cross that someone bears. You don't know, what is going on behind their own head or what have you. So I honestly can't support this enough. I think that, again, if this is what we're doing to help our young people, that maybe they can take tools and maybe help someone at home or however, it's helping. And it's our part in our community, and that's really what stands out for me personally. So I applaud the effort, I applaud the initiative that has been going on, and I can't say enough, honestly. Thank you.
I completely agree, and I think at the same time as being able to deal with the current issues, it'll be great to have the Health and Wellness Committee and all the committees within the schools to start digging into the underlying issues as well, so you're tackling it on both fronts. So my specific questions were related to the special education piece here. I noticed at Convocation that we had a whole lot of new teachers, and is that showing an actual increase, or is that a replacement or an increased focus in special education?
So 2 things were done. In the course of the year, we realigned, at the end of last year, really worked with each of the building leaderships, looked at our current special education numbers, because they will always shift, with graduations and moving to other schools. So we project that out. We worked with each of the building leaderships to really say, okay, how do you, with your schedule and your building, how are you going to be able to kind of implement our inclusion initiative, which really involves a lot of co-teaching in some of our classrooms. They kind of went back and looked at what their needs were. We also looked at issues of equity in terms of, it just happens where over the course of the years, you might end up with more teacher assistants in one school, less in other schools. So we kind of looked at everything with a fresh eye, really looked at the amount based on IEPs of what those staffing needs should be, made adjustments there. So yes, at the end of the day, there are added special education teachers and a realignment of some of our teacher assistants, where pretty much we are starting the year with more net increase in both areas than we ended.
Great, that's fantastic. Another little question that I had when you were talking about the people from McLean that are coming, with the postdoctoral fellow, is there any associated research project going on as part of this partnership?
No. Basically, in terms of an ongoing research project that we are part of, we are not. One of the beauties of this partnership, though, is we are becoming privy through our partnership of ongoing research and stuff that is being done by the hospital, or for some of them, I believe they both, Mona and Katie, the psychologists and psychiatrists, are also on the faculty of Harvard Medical School as well. So we're kind of privy to, stuff happening, but we are not part of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And if you could just continue on with that a little bit, because it sounds like we're super lucky to have this partnership and it's unique. How did that come about? Like, why Falmouth? Why did we get so lucky?
I basically, we know there was a need. I knew that within my department I needed to better support our clinical staff. I didn't feel personally that last year I, as an office, as a department, really was able to give them a lot of the tools that they need as they're being faced with the students that they have. In addition to hearing that our teachers needed some new tools, and so it's called, pick up the phone and call people and, say, hey,
Charlie sought this out. They did not pick us.
Yeah.
Charlie saw a need, and I just want to make two comments on that. One is when you talk about the increase in teachers, our Connect program at the elementary level has really become much bigger, and the Connect program is at the elementary level, our youngest learners with social emotional disabilities. And we haven't had a K cohort, a kindergarten cohort, the littlest ones, in a Connect program before, and now we do. And that's a huge shift for us. So expanding that program in a real effort to keep our own kids in our own schools. And in order to create that program, you really have to support it. And supporting it means additional teachers, additional resources, and connection to the Connect program. That's my one comment. My second comment is, another piece I want to make really clear is that with McLean Hospital, it isn't just about special education. Because what we're seeing over the past 5 years is an increase in anxiety and depression in lots of our kids who are not identified anywhere as special ed, as ELL, they're not in any category. They are kids who are having a really hard time. And we're seeing it particularly at Lawrence through the high school, although we had a couple at Morse Pond last year, so that it's getting younger. So trying to help kids, families, and our staff manage the stress and looking at how we may contribute to that stress is critical. And it isn't just about identified students. It's a broader umbrella.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
How is it funded? How is the McLean Initiative funded?
Sure. So this is one of those things where school choice funds are applicable to an endeavor like this, as most school choice funds are used for some substantial one-time or not a salary or something like that. So right now through that.
is that going to be then a recommendation to continue that through the school fund or the school choice funding? Because it obviously sounds like an excellent program. And a lot of time, excellent programs are dropped within a period of time because of funding issues. So if this is such an excellent program and we want to maintain it, because obviously there's more professional development, there's more emphasis on dealing with kids. That's what we're here for. So the essence of this long-range planning is we've got to continue this program, so the dollars and cents are important. And if that can be maintained through that school choice funds, then that's great. But I don't want to see this, we peaked, we have something great, and all of a sudden, there's a slack. Just a comment.
Yeah. And I would say we are seeing, with the work that we began to even do last year, as Nancy said, if we use the example of our Connect program, okay, although our work with McLean, Nancy's correct, is larger, but as an example, we saw some great success stories. So last year, we began and expanded our Connect to have our littlest of learners, because we were identifying students from our preschools that we knew were going to not make it in kindergarten in the general ed setting. And so we really looked to put those supports in place for those littlest of learners. And I had just found out this week that one of those littlest of learners last year, who was in our intense, substantially separate classroom for last year, is now 100% in a full inclusion general ed classroom for first grade. And that is just a wonderful, wonderful success story of how when you put supports in place for students, great things happen. And what's wonderful is we want to see a student like that move into our general ed classrooms or co-taught classrooms and not end up out of district. And that then becomes a big price tag when that happens. So it's well-spent money to kind of put those supports in place at a district-wide level.
So, can I just, before I forget, but I think that Bill's point is really important in that when we sit at budget workshop or when we're in budget subcommittee, I think not only do we want to know, at some point, is this going well enough that we want to keep doing it? We're obviously not going to decide that now because we don't know yet, but we're going to want to know how much it costs and whether or not we don't want it to be reliant on school choice funds because they're not for sure. So I guess we just want to make sure we follow that, right?
And what is it equally, McLean is very interested in knowing that they are giving a benefit to us. So we've had discussions around what type of data can we collect? How do we measure our success in helping students? Because that's important. And, being researchers, clinicians, and hospitals, they like data too. And so we're really looking at having something that ultimately we'll be able to share with the committee that says, guess what? We have success stories, and here's our data that shows it.
Sorry.
That's okay. I just had a quick question about the funding. So the school choice is funding the McLean Hospital Partnership. Is the school choice also funding the increase in the Connect program? No.
No.
Oh, no.
No.
Salary.
Okay.
We keep salaries out of school choice.
Yeah,
No, not the salary, just like the, I know that the classrooms require things and,
No, that comes out of my budget, the local budget.
Right.
Yep. And then there are some, for a program like Connect, some things come out of my special education entitlement grants.
thank you for, just when you were talking about the funding, I just wanted to be clear. Thank you. John?
Yeah, just a comment question on the McLean portion, and then I'm going to talk about the special ed overview. So with that, with the data that's accumulated and whatnot, and just anytime I think when there's a third party involved, and especially in talking about psychiatrists, psychologists, and postdoctoral fellow psychologists, I really want to make sure we're including the parents and all of that, and that they know who's talking to their kid, and any kind of feedback that's given, so you have that kind of partnership so that they're gaining from that, those benefits too as well.
And I can speak to that. There's different levels of the confidentiality piece. So naturally, we have all signed releases when we really want to bring the McLean folks partnering with the parent and have those conversations, or the ability to make a referral for services. Then there's more of a clinical supervision piece where identifiable information of a student is not shared with McLean. It's more as in what is commonly done with other types of clinical services. We have a student, he presents this way, he's in 3rd grade, the teacher's trying this, and it's more of a generic type of conversation. So there are different levels that depending on the situation, would use.
Good. Now, as far as the overview of the special needs goals of 2017, I love the focus on transitions from school to school. Even with regards to on the high achievement side too, the same thing. I'd mirror it for that. You're in discussion too, Sonia and Zach. The vertical alignment is great. Passing on. What was successful, some visual cues, things of that nature. I would really stress the strong communication, and I think your folks do a good job of it, Chuck, where they continue to have that communication from one school to the other.
Yeah.
And then even carrying it even more so, and they do this, but to even more so focus on the visual for the student to see, here's the teacher from this school, and here's the teacher from that school, and they're a partnership, and then having the parent involved as much as possible, which is a focus. I just think it's a successful dynamic.
It's a goal that we began last year, and I have to give kudos to my special education building administrators because they did a phenomenal job in embracing this goal and really putting some new and innovative things in place, not only for the students, but also for the parents, because often it's the parents who are more anxious about going from elementary school, let's say, to Morse Pond or Morse Pond to Lawrence. I particularly, would call out that our transition from Morse Pond to Lawrence really had a few new innovative things with our CBERs, Dr. Valdez and Katie Hurt, in terms of creating some new parent transition meetings and just some good creative stuff that was done.
Good. The other suggestion I would have is to try to, whenever possible, as we can interact with some third parties, like the Kennedy Donovan Center or even just some other groups that might be of a specific, diagnosis, that there's a, whatever kind of event or something where someone could attend. I find that those are very beneficial, that you can have the synergies of a large group of folks that are dealing with a specific diagnosis, that may have one person attend it, and then they have somebody who's interacted with 100 kids with that type of diagnosis, and then they can leverage those type experience to bring back to the district.
That's a great example. We've always been involved with the Special Olympics, but it's really taking that idea and doing it really on an ongoing basis with other groups. It's a great idea.
Any other questions for Charlie? Thanks, Charlie. Cindy, you have a really long list, and you were busy all summer. You want to highlight any of them?
Yes. Well, actually, as far as the summer work goes, this obviously, I have to call out and thank my technical team who work all summer long getting this stuff done for the start of school. And they just do a great job, and I'm appreciative of all their efforts. And just going forward, there's just a lot to look forward to, and believe it or not, one of the things I'm really looking forward to is working on the keyboarding at the elementary level. So and developing that.
Any questions for Cindy? Thea.
End of life Chromebooks. So they're going to the high school for what?
They're going to the high school because I get requests in different departments for more, and rather buying more, I feel that they're still usable. Let's get them used. And they're supported by Google for 5 years. In talking with other tech directors, we're not really sure how much longer beyond 5 years they'll have. of life before because basically it's browser-based. I'm anticipating, if you've ever seen the Chrome browser, where you don't do updates, it's got the big red padlock on it. That's what I'm anticipating happening. So, but instead of, and I've actually said to folks who've put in requests that they would like some Chromebooks, that, well, I can get you some, because a lot of these are still perfectly usable. I know that they've got 2 years left of life on them, and we're just trying to reallocate and be really smart with our dollars and how we're doing this. And I've been working with Patrick. We're working together on a refresh plan for some of these core devices in the district. So more upcoming on that in the next few months.
So my vision, that's different than what I was thinking. I was thinking that actually students were like taking them apart and learning about how computers or how Chromebooks are made, and I mean, which when they're really end of life, I guess they could be used that way. But
the end of life in terms of the device just phasing out of being usable for us. So where we know we're trying to stagger the purchases so that we're mindful of, we've got the 2 one-to-one schools. So how do we do this without saying, okay, we need tons of money all in the same year. So we're trying to do that and do that in such a way that we're mindful of how we can continue to use them in different areas, including Mullen Hall.
And you'll update us on that refresh program?
Yes, it's going to be a couple of months because we're still working on some details.
Excellent, excellent.
I'm glad to hear it's not kind of a hospice thing for the that would be kind of depressing. But no, kudos to you, Cindy, on taking probably the road not taking or less traveled, of making something that's a little bit more work for you and saving us money in the district. So thank you very much for that.
I thought for sure John would comment on the screen time one. So since you didn't, I'm gonna.
Okay.
That it makes me happy that it's on the radar, even for, I know you're like the computer junkie, but still you're thinking thoughtfully about the use of screens and working with curriculum instruction.
I am a computer junkie, but I started as an elementary teacher. So
you're balanced, which I appreciate.
Yeah. Just a comment or suggestion. I didn't know if it'd be useful. I noticed I was looking at the web pages under the staff directory before school started, and it wasn't up to date as far as teachers and if they switched grades. There was still some old employees that weren't there. I just didn't know.
All right, so a lot of that is kept up by the schools have designated people.
Okay.
And I think a lot of that, we're in transition in training people at each of the schools, that as we had our July meeting, we kind of showcased, but it was July and a lot of people that we would be training. So we've had some trainings over the summer, but we haven't caught up with everyone. So Ryan has been trying to keep up with some of this himself. But in the meantime, it's going to be a little bit of a transition to make sure we're
I just know for new parents going in, they're looking on it and saying, wait, my kid doesn't have it for first, it has it for second, and there's a little confusion around it. So I was just wondering.
Okay, well, we will make sure that we take a look at that. Thank you.
And we did talk a long time ago, I don't remember whose idea it was, to have photos of the teachers on there.
I remember that.
Especially for new kids and kindergartners, to be able to just see the face of the person that was their teacher. It might make them feel better. I don't know if we have the ability to do that, but it was a long time ago.
That's a good idea.
Any other questions for Cindy? Thanks, Cindy. Oh, how exciting! Chawani?
Well, I'm thrilled to be here. I think that, first of all, I want to thank everyone in central office and the building principals, even new staff coming in, amazingly thoughtful. It's very difficult to transition a director of human resources a couple of weeks before school begins. Like, that is probably the worst time that you're thinking of taking on the position. But let me tell you, it has been amazing. Everyone here in central office has been amazingly welcoming and supportive and helpful, and many times not being asked. They understand what's important and step in and either give me a heads up or do it themselves or come and do it with me, or sound the alarm, which I appreciate. I've had quite a few principals email me and say, someone probably told you this, but in case they hadn't. And it was all in service to the students. it was all in service to making sure that that first day when they walked in, they were launching a great school year. So that says to me that this is the right place, it's a good fit, and I love being here, and so I am thrilled. My report is very short because it's only been 3 weeks. I'm waiting for the magical 40 days to see, I don't know why, but that number is the one that sticks in my head. And I don't know if you have any questions for me, but the first thing that I made a priority was making sure that people were hired, that we went through that process, that we were careful with safety and security, and that we knew who was coming on board, and that no important corners were cut in making sure that we were starting with everyone that we needed to start with. And then the other pieces you'll see from my very brief report, and I'll expand on this as the year progresses, is I want to make sure that I look at the district's goals around social, emotional, and academics through the HR lens and how HR can support that kind of work. And one of the things, my doctorate did research on secondary traumatic stress, the impact of secondary traumatic stress and trauma on teachers and educators who work with students with trauma histories. And so for me, it's really important for educators, all educators in the building, to have a way of understanding how working with some of our most at-risk and traumatized students can affect them. And how do they stay healthy? And how do they stay invested in the work in a way that they have some longevity in the work, that they don't burn out? And so that's something that I know that I can bring to Falmouth, and that I'm very excited about.
That's excellent.
That's great.
Well done.
Thank you.
We're going to have 11 or 25 years of service after all of that. Any questions for Joanna? We're very happy you're here.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Patrick, what would you like to share with us?
I just want to compliment Dr. Santa. She's fantastic, and for folks that may have talked to me in July when I said we were all hired up, well, we were. But the last week of August, people's lives changed, and resignations, retirements happened, but we were able to fill in the missing pieces at the last minute. So thanks to Dr. Santa. The document that I gave to you, this is a document we'll be working through and reviewing again at our budget workshop. This is something that's an important trend for you all to understand. Federal grants and state grants are important to any school district. You see the trends that are going downward, and the expectation that we're for fiscal year 19 and fiscal year 20 is that they will continue to go down. The superintendent and I have already begun these conversations with the town to let them know what the trends look like. Their trends is all we know. We don't get absolute information until the money shows up. So that's the other hard part about this. The money doesn't show up till well after our budget season happens. So you have to make guesstimates.
Any questions for Patrick?
No, but I have a comment, because this is a tendency to go on and on and on, and we have to do much more with much less dollars and cents. And I'm going to start off by a quote, and I think this is really important. It's from John Adams, and he goes back a few years. The whole people must take upon themselves the education of the whole people and be willing to bear the expense of it. And in our society today, we're not willing to bear the expense of it. And when I look at your totals from 16 to 17, your totals, you lost out on $158,059. And if you go through each one of these, you'll see a deficit of $7,000, $30,000, just things that are going to continue in the educational process to put more pressure on communities, school committees, administrators, etc. And I just think we need to continue to make comments that are supportive of public education and continue to make comments that support public education. Because it seems to me when we have to make cuts, make cuts in public education with federal and state grants, and mostly with federal grants. Because federal, to me, doesn't want anything to do with public education. And I just had to make those comments because when I looked at this and started breaking down numbers and being involved as an educator and as a principal and involved with budgets and involved with title programs, you just look at it and say, yes, it just keeps going on the trend we don't want it to. And it forces us to in a position of finances that is difficult for everybody. And I just needed to make that comment.
Thanks, Bill. Walter?
Patrick, this is a follow-up to a phone conversation we had, but for the benefit of the committee, is that phase one of the field relocation situation on the warrant for the town meeting?
Yeah, so I believe it was being recommended by the town manager and the CFO to be moved forward. So it's the planning, it's the planning dollars for the field project and the specs.
As part of the capital plan?
Yeah.
That'll be on.
As part of the capital
Not
plan.
as a separate
As part of
article.
the capital plan.
So that's on the warrant for the upcoming town meeting?
As part of the
It's
capital
part
plan.
of our capital plan.
Yes.
If you look at the capital plan, there's a line in there that speaks specifically to the field. It is not a separate article.
Oh, not a separate, okay.
That's what I heard that you were confused. It is not a separate article.
Right before town meeting, so I guess probably middle of October, we'll have our precinct meetings. I'll look at the calendar, but if the meetings, our school committee meeting that precedes those, if we can get a quick recap on exactly what the money is for, so that when we're at our precinct meetings and people ask, we know what we're talking about, because it'll be fresh. It was a while ago, so I just want to make sure it's fresh on my mind.
If you want to make a cheat sheet for us.
I would not mind that either.
That would be great.
Leah?
So I'm actually going back to the grant piece and the federal grant piece. I'm wondering if any of you know, since the trend has been these cuts in our federal grants, and you look at over the last 2 years, there's been an even more drastic cut. Are private organizations offering more funds? Are there more grants out there that are coming from non-for-profits or other organizations? I don't know this, but I'm wondering if they're starting to bring more money forward, knowing where we've been federally.
So my comment on that would suggest that there are some organizations that are stepping up. The Tower Grant. What does not happen though is the sustaining money. When we talk about grants from the federal government, these are effectively part of our operating budget. They are designated for very, very specific programs that are required by school districts. But that's using the word grant sort of gives people this idea that it's a one-time idea, it's a one-time project. No, that's not what this is. As opposed to private organizations which inevitably say, here, we'll give you some money for a year, 2 years, 3 years, but then figure it out afterwards. And they do that with, there's thoughtfulness attached to it, but it's not something that you're going to count on for multiple years as part of an operating budget to run a program.
And it can be the expectation that they fund it for a little bit and that it will roll into your operating budget. And that's a really tricky place to be in.
Right.
So
and
that's just a caution.
See typically in these organizational grants. But my question is, are organizations starting to step up in other ways now because of these gaps that we're seeing in education?
I'm not seeing that. I'm not aware of.
It would be a great thing to do.
Any other questions for Patrick?
Mandate programs and we don't pay for
Thank you, Patrick.
state level. Unfunded.
Finally on the back of the page. Okay, report from the chair. I have a bunch of stuff. I apologize in advance. The first thing coming around a few meetings ago, I think it was the last one of the school year last year, we had a request from Leah for follow-up information on, sorry, I'll start passing it around instead of sending it down to I don't know if we have enough for everyone. I have absolutely no idea. Send it down. It was a request on the Falmouth High School students with documented medical conditions. Alan Kazarian had given us 2 years of data, and Leah had asked for 3 years. So the sheet that's coming around, and if there's enough, I don't know if there's going to be enough for all of our admin people, but this has got the previous year. So you can see 2014, 15, as well as 15, 16, and then last year. Most of them going up. I don't know if you want to do anything with this, but you're welcome to ask for more information when we get to that. I just want to make sure everybody got it. Also coming around next will be, Terry, I'm going to send it this way, and then we'll catch you on the flip-flop if that's okay. This is the actual resolution that we passed at our last meeting for the foundation budget review resolution, and since we passed it, we all need to sign that, and then we'll get it back to Sharon. Everyone has to sign it.
You can start it down. We're going to start it down and send it back.
Okay. Oh. Doesn't make any difference as long as everybody signs that for us, since we passed it at the last one. Next, coming around, can you give that to Terry? Next coming around is a packet from Town Council with information about the conflict of interest law. And it actually has nothing to do with the fact that we just had a presentation on conflict of interest. Oh wait, was there just one that needed to be signed, or do they all?
Each person has to sign the third page.
The third page, I thought it was the last page, sorry. So everybody needs to sign the third page, and then you just want them to give it to you, Sharon?
Yes.
Okay. With your printed name and your signature that you have received the summary of the conflict of interest law. I think, yeah. It's very similar to the one that we've done about open meeting, but this one is conflict. We learned all about it. The timing could not have been better. Okay, so lots of things to sign. Next. So I have asked Leah as her responsibilities as assistant chair, what is it, vice chair, assistant chair, whatever it is, to take on an additional responsibility. And as you know, we have just the chair reply to all emails that come from the public, so that it's NCC the entire committee, so that we're not all individually replying to every single person that writes back, that we have one person that's designated to handle that. And I've asked Leah to handle that piece, because I'm kind of overloaded, and she has graciously agreed. So when people write to the school committee, she will be the one that replies and then CCs the whole committee so that we all see what she said. I just wanted to make sure everybody knew, because it's a little bit different than before. We don't actually have a procedure or a policy or protocol or anything that determines how we do it. So there's no official anything that needs to be changed. It's just me letting you know. Next, at our retreat, we had the giant pieces of poster that we had taken all of our lovely notes on, setting priorities. And I had gone back, I had said that I was going to try and combine some of the categories that didn't get votes, but we felt were really represented in other categories. So the third highest vote getter, I'll start with that, was communication and transparency. The second highest vote getter for priorities for the coming year was vocational and career tracks. And then these are the pieces that I combined, and I just want to run by and make sure that we're all on the same page. I took drug and alcohol prevention, social emotional health, family and parent issues, the impact of technology, and whole child health, and combined those. Does that sound reflective of what we were actually trying to do? I just wanted to make sure we're all in agreement.
Yes, it does.
Does that seem right? Yeah. So it's taking those anxiety things and social, emotional, and depression and school and screen time and combining them. So I just want to say, transparent communication got 4 total votes out of us as a group, as a priority for the next few years. Vocational and career tracks got 5. And then taking those other pieces together, that whole child actually had 19 votes out of the ones that, I think we each had 5 or something. So I'll jot those down and send that out to you. I just didn't have a chance to print it out. I wanted to make sure everybody was good with that. Ooh, that's a lot of stuff.
Thank you for taking the time to tally that all up, too.
It was interesting to look at it again. I still have them in my bag. I brought them for Nancy so she could see what we had been doing. Committee member reports. Any other?
So can I keep with that and just do a follow-up for our
from your
retreat?
Sure.
So in our retreat, we all did both an individual rating and then how we reflect on us with our protocols, how we feel the school committee is doing protocols. So we reflected as individuals and then we reflected as how the overall committee, how we felt the overall committee was doing. And I tallied all of our votes up, and we actually, I'm really proud of how we have been following our protocols. The majority of the protocols were rated between, so our ratings were 1, never, 2, sometimes, 3, most of the time, and 4, always. All but 2 of the protocols we rated right between most of the time and always. So we're really following our protocols, we're really living by them, which is something for us to be proud of. The 2 areas that we felt that we wanted to work on were the efficiency of our meetings and then really developing this vision, our priorities. And we already started working on that at that meeting. So I feel like both of those are areas that we're looking at and we're exploring and we're trying to get more information in. So, good job.
Yeah.
And that was all, it was anonymous. It wasn't, everyone did that on their own. And then you guys all have your individual ratings. So you guys know individually if there's something else you want to work on. So, thank you. I'm just going to do one other announcement for, yes, for FEF in Action. So Tuesday, October 3rd, so I'll do another reminder in our next school committee meeting to go see what all the grantee projects are. And so that will be at the Falmouth Public Library in the Herman Room on October 3rd, 6:30 to 8 p.m.
Thanks. Any other reports? Oh, I'm sorry. I swore I would never do that to you, and look, I just did it.
Yes, see?
I'm so sorry. I need a mirror. One of those, ones you have in your driveway.
See around the corner. Yeah, that's me. I'm the one in the corner. As part of the, who's laughing? As part of the work we are doing to make our meetings more efficient, we did some work and I'm taking on kind of put it all together. But I thought this half of the table is also at our meetings, and we didn't ask them one single question. So I'm going to I'll try to send you a guided direction questionnaire, because you guys have plenty of free time, right? Banging around, moving you to report to the beginning of our meetings and just all different kinds of scenarios. So I'm taking that on myself. Do you guys agree that we didn't ask this half of them?
I think we should ask Nancy if she's okay with that.
Yeah.
I would like to be included on that, and I would like to be able to meet with my central office staff and craft our response, because I have been having conversations with the efficient use of their time at these meetings and the writing of reports, and so I have some very strong feelings about that.
So I was just going to say, could you meet with Nancy and also be able to fill her in on the conversation that we had about the concerns that came up at the retreat about managing our meeting time, and then she'll be caught up and
that would be great.
Okay, I love that. Great. Anything else, John?
No, just in fairness to disclosure, that the discussion of that was by no means unanimous.
No.
It was very, and I love having you guys here. I think it's invaluable, and I think just the presence means a lot to me. That's I just wanted to say that.
Great. Any other reports? Requests for agenda items.
One report is I have my, from the collaborative, I have my first meeting of the Cape Cod Collaborative tomorrow night. I met in a nice meeting with Paul Hilton and went over some things this past week. I'm very excited and looking forward to that.
Great, thanks, and you'll let us know what happens, right?
Absolutely.
Great. Agenda items?
An agenda item, I've had a lot of folks reach out to me about the the $80 parking fee for kids driving at the high school. And just wanted to kind of learn more about that and, where those funds go, and then what's the, just the notion of that some kids might be driving to work after school and whatnot, and are we, causing a challenge to them that there's another bit of money that they have to come up with, and, versus the staff doesn't pay, but the kids pay. That's just something I wanted to kind of get out there.
Okay. Agenda, any other agenda? Thank you, sorry. Any other agenda items? Follow-up, I did it again, Terry, I'm sorry. Any requests for follow-up information? Terry?
No, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Oh, we did a little bit out of order because we've got subcommittee reports, but we rolled it all into one. How did we do? Were we efficient? Oh, I'm sorry, we do. I'm sorry. When I did member reports, I was assuming people were going to subcommittee report as well, but do you want to?
So as an evaluation subcommittee, Nancy, I think maybe we could talk offline about what you think would be a good time for our first meeting.
Sure.
Where you feel ready. But if we can think over the next few weeks of getting together.
That would be fine. I need a little time to do, I have some ideas around my goals.
Okay.
But I'll need a little bit of time to just craft them.
Okay.
And I would like to look into whether or not we could have Walter participate by phone so he doesn't have to try and get to the meeting. I don't know if there's rules around that, but I want to try and at least find out. I mean, I know you can.
I can get to the meeting.
You sure? Okay. I just don't want to put you up.
I was looking forward to
Painful, but I can do it.
I was looking forward to having a little virtual Walter.
We'll make a cardboard cutout just in case. Andrew?
Will other subcommittees then start, getting out the word of when we're going to meet and?
Yeah, I think we're starting to get rolling with the start of the meeting here.
Yeah, will we hear about, from policy?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll hear. Okay.
Anne usually sends that first email, I think.
Okay. And that just reminds me that at the retreat, we did talk about one of our first agenda items for all of our subcommittees being to develop what is the goal, is the purpose?
Yes.
The purpose.
And I've started a template for that I'll send to Kelly to distribute, and kind of looked at them and noticed a little bit more detail of how we can group them, because when I tried to form a template, I could see that they didn't all align exactly.
The same way.
So I think there's a little bit of difference between what are our main subcommittees than the other ones where we're either liaisons or a task force, and task force might have goals, and so I've kind of broken them into chunks. I'll send that to you to be able to distribute to people, and filled out some starter ones to get the idea.
We are just moving forward like nobody's business. It's awesome. Did I miss anything? All right.
Just to go back to the John's request for the agenda item of the parking fee at FHS. I have lots of questions around that, so if we could get that on the agenda sooner rather than later, that would be helpful to the folks that have reached out to myself as well.
All right.
And I guess I don't know if this would be an agenda item, but the talk that happened at Convocation, and I think it was videotaped, which maybe means it exists somewhere, on race and poverty, was really amazing. And talking about how we can incorporate those discussions. It might be a future agenda item. It might be multiple times to really start having those discussions and see how that ties in. But for anybody who wasn't able to see it, I guess I'd like to figure out how we can point people to.
Yeah, that would be really nice actually, because it was a really good presentation. Convocation? Probably not.
There is videotape. I have seen it, so we can put that, I think we can put that up on the website.
It wasn't that long, but it was worthwhile, and to see somebody at the state level who is supportive that way, too. It's a good watch, too. It's not
boring.
Engaging, and I think...
Is it something that we could play at the school committee meeting? I mean, is it
No, it's too long.
Oh, it's too long.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was worth watching.
Definitely.
You won't fall asleep.
It's very well.
No, it's really good.
He is excellent and very, very knowledgeable.
Yes, so lucky to have him there. Yeah.
Okay, now did I miss anything?
That's it.
Okay. We have a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No one's The gavel. I always forget that part.
Thank you.